Your time playing it because this is the same person who thought throwing a black themed birthday party after already getting in trouble and apologizing for saying the N-word was the right move. So I'm just going to swiftly move along. This clip from the Boondocks basically sums up her apology.
I want to apologize to all of you for what I did. It was very wrong and I am very sorry. I just would like to move on and lead a normal life. You know, get a job and a wife and change my ways. And I hope this apology impresses you, even though my grandmother made me do it and I don't really mean it.
You mean you do mean it?
I mean, I do mean it. I don't think he means it.
The end goal seems simple, get attention, but I've noticed it also gives fans something to defend and rally behind. It fuels this us against the world narrative that teenage stans and even adults love. They think to themselves, the idols are just misunderstood, and they must be defended and protected at all costs. I like to tie all my videos together in some fashion, and this reminds me of Chappell Roan's fans. I knew after the first time she went unscathed by controversy that she had spawned a new generation of die-hard loyalists that would defend her every move uncritically. It's us against the world. But I still don't understand why people defend celebrities with their entire chest, like their life depends on it. Do you think they do the same for you? Chappell, Doja, and a lot of celebrities literally don't want y'all to even say hi to them, despite you paying their bills. But I now understand that it's all projection. They don't actually care about the celebrities. Most people just don't want to change or be held responsible for their own actions. And if we started doing that to public figures, then it'll eventually trickle down to them, and they're deathly afraid of that. It's also very telling when people criticize pop culture commentators like myself and say that we should save this energy for politicians. One, like we can't do both. And two, pop stars and idols are so much more visible and engaging, and if we start encouraging being critical of them, then that will lead to holding people accountable in all areas, including politics. It's a process. When my Culture Vulture video went viral on gay Twitter, apparently, somebody commented, "Oh, you guys are talking about these things that don't even matter, like we have bigger fish to fry." And this response was so funny. They said, "The reason we have bigger fish to fry is because y'all can't focus on the smaller things." And I thought that was so funny. If we focus on the small things, then they won't become bigger things, but we don't talk about the small things and then they become humongous things that we can't ever solve. So don't let people distract you with that dumb shit. I bring up Western celebrities to again show that this is a global phenomenon, but the way K-pop differs from the West is the infantilization of idols. Idols will be grown adults and the fandom insists on treating them like children. They act like idols have no autonomy or knowledge of the world around them. It's true that idols typically have less freedom and control over their careers than in the West, but fans would make you think they have none whatsoever. A recent example is Jungkook from BTS immediately apologizing after wearing a hat that read, "Make Tokyo Great Again," that closely resembled the MAGA hats we see in the US. Like clockwork, fans came in to defend him and excuse his actions, but as an adult who has agency and cares about the message he's sending out in the world, Jungkook took accountability, addressed the situation, and apologized. Fans take away agency from these idols for several reasons, but the main one is rationalization. As humans, we're all susceptible to biases like the halo effect, where someone does one good thing we like, and all their actions going forward are tinted with rose-colored glasses. The thought process goes as follows: I like this person, so they must be good, and I'll work backwards from there, ignoring or defending any of their unfavorable actions or behaviors to make sure that they are always good, instead of the healthier approach, which is taking their actions as they come and changing your perception accordingly. Fans want so desperately to believe that these idols are worthy of our admiration and blind support, so we pretend that they are, because it's easier than facing the reality that no one is entirely good or bad. People contain multitudes. Onions have layers. The cultural difference excuse frequently used to explain away racism in K-pop is particularly annoying. It suggests that Asian artists somehow can't be held to the same standards of racial sensitivity as their Western counterparts, which is both condescending and enabling. There are literally no consequences for these racist actions. To again quote Saida Dahir, K-pop idols are constantly being called out for blackface, wearing black hairstyles, and saying the N-word, but still face no consequences. Unlike dating or drug scandals, cultural appropriation has never been able to hurt a K-pop idol's career, and some claim it benefits their international success even more. Me. Similarly stated in Non-Threatening Boys, Strip for Me Virgin, the strange duality of K-pop fandom, doing blackface is okay in the world of K-pop. Having a girlfriend is not. Now I know people are going to ask, why does it matter? Why are you letting it get to you if you know it's just for marketing? And it's just very dismissive to act like racism with an underlying motive is any less affecting than thoughtless racism. They're like, racism but with a plan. Not that bad. It's exploiting black trauma and pain just like it does our labor. We've mostly talked about the social aspects of anti-blackness in the industry, but we also need to talk about how black people are used and exploited behind the scenes. I've alluded to the several cultural aspects that belong to black culture as a whole, but let's zoom in on the real black creators that have been exploited as a result. They are the songwriters, producers, and choreographers behind your favorite comebacks. Some of the most iconic songs in K-pop have been written and produced by black artists, my favorite of which is Rodney Chick Bell, who's contributed to EXO's Overdose and Monster, my all-time favorite, Mr. Mr. by Girls' Generation, Banger, Red Dress by Red Velvet, and more recently NCT 127's Kick It. This might be very unpopular. I can't stand that song. There's also Teddy Riley, who wrote another one of my all-time favorite songs, What Is Love by EXO. There's Adrian McKinnon, Taylor Parks, Bianca Blush Atterbury, and so many more. But not all of these writers have been appreciated for the hard work of making the hits that keep the industry going. In the 2020 article, They Use Our Culture, the Black Creatives and Fans Holding K-Pop Accountable, Elizabeth DeLuna describes the stories of songwriters and producers who've been taken advantage of in the industry. First, there is Tiffany Red, a Grammy Award-winning songwriter and artist who's worked with artists like Zendaya and Jason Derulo. She wrote the song Go for NCT Dream, and the music publisher paid her a pitiful $66, which funnily enough was also the budget for the music video. I'm joking, by the way. It's just like, I'll never forgive them for putting Renjun in that fuck-ass tree. Like, what are we doing? Similarly, songwriter, producer Micah Powell attended a SM songwriting camp where he wrote the song Devil and added a little dance move when presenting to the executives. Without notifying him, the company used the song as Super Junior's lead single.
Should Israel fear being banned from international football like Russia? Yes, Israel should be nervous, not because the pliable bureaucrats who run the international game have suddenly had grown a conscience and decided to hold Israel accountable for its ongoing war crimes. The reason for alarm is that those bureaucrats may no longer be able to hold the line against the pressure from fans, from players and coaches who are disgusted by the idea that normal sport can continue with a regime engaged in genocide. I'm Tony Karan. I'm the editorial lead at AJ Plus. I have been writing and teaching about the intersections of football and politics for a couple of decades now. Banning a country's teams and clubs from the World Cup is not unprecedented. FIFA, the World Football Governing Body, had banned apartheid South Africa because of that policy from 1964 until the early 90s. When Russia invades Ukraine, it takes FIFA literally 4 days to suspend Russia from all international competition. Its national team can't play in the World Cup or the Euros. Its club teams can't play in any of the UEFA competitions. UEFA, being the European affiliate of FIFA, said this is taken in line with its commitment to common European values such as peace and respect for human rights. From my experience in South Africa, what I saw about the sports boycott and its effect on the apartheid regime, and particularly on the
This video was made possible with the support of my amazing patrons.
It seems that the more places I see and experience, the bigger I realize the world to be. The more I become aware of it, the more I realize how relatively little I know of it, how many places I still have to go, how much more there is to learn.
If it isn't already obvious, Americans are living in a vortex of entropy. From the giant Cybertrucks to the sheer amount of Blue Lives Matter flags, it's overwhelming. But I've become especially baffled about the food culture. I was puzzled on my last trip there when I was trying to recreate Brazilian food like white rice and beans to learn that many Americans that I know are averse to things like white rice, a staple not only in Brazil but throughout Latin America and Asia, a food that feeds billions of people a day, is given the side eye in the US because it has, and I quote, no nutritional value. And it's not just white rice. The fear many in the US have around bad foods like coffee and whole milk is just so strange to me. Even bananas get the side eye for having too much sugar. The worst part for me is that there's seemingly no self-awareness by the Americans, or should I say United Statesians, who make these comments. The same people who claim coffee is a diuretic and say white rice has no nutritional value, how could you eat that every day, then go on to eat neon purple pancakes at IHOP topped with whipped cream. And powdered energy drinks for gamers because coffee with whole milk is just too much apparently. And these same people also look up the Japanese culture, where white rice is eaten even for breakfast. The jokes write themselves. It's just so perplexing to have these conversations because it shows how a lot of Americans so readily believe these giant generalizations. White rice has no nutritional value without an ounce of cultural knowledge. And I'm not saying white rice specifically is the most healthy food in the world, everything in moderation, but how can you just say that with your whole chest and then go on to eat purple and pink cotton candy ice cream at Dairy Queen? In my experience, I think it's because the US population is so inundated with propaganda that they don't even realize the lies they're being fed. Forgive my pun. Hence the vortex of entropy. It's like entering the Twilight Zone.
To serve man, it's a cookbook.
Both when it comes to the lobbying and promotion of sugary and fatty food, as well as a constant stream of new flavors that you must try, but also propaganda that the US is #1. We're doing things the right way, and everywhere else is backwards and primitive, especially countries in the global south and outside of the imperial core like Brazil, whose population eats rice, red meat, and coffee as part of their daily diets, all big no-nos in the US. Not to mention China and most of Asia, who eat white rice daily. And though coffee is consumed in the US, their coffee culture is very different when juxtaposed to the rest of the world, specifically in Brazil and parts of Europe, where having an afternoon espresso is not the norm for Americans who prefer to take their coffee watered down with half and half and syrup on the go. But still, many Americans look down upon the world with disdain from their city upon a sugar and dairy laden hill. The worst thing is that many actually believe that they are in the best country in the world and that the rest of the world has got it wrong. Even people that I know who aren't politically conservative are incurious about my life in Brazil and aren't interested in hearing about the food culture, arguably the easiest gateway to get to know a new place. It's almost as though they feel threatened by hearing an opposing perspective that could potentially shatter their worldview. If I told them most Brazilians live in straw huts and have to hide from monkeys and jaguars, they'd believe me. I showed someone I know a picture of Recife once and they thought it was Orlando. That's just bad geography. Orlando is nowhere near the coast, but that's beside the point. But to be fair, Americans do get a lot of shit. Rightfully so in most cases, we definitely deserve it, but when it comes to food, it's not all bad. It's not all corporate slop. There are distinct amazing food cultures in the US that we'll get into. And I don't think it's productive to blame individuals, even ones that I'm close to and would seemingly take an interest in my life, for not having a frame of reference when it comes to how other countries eat and market food. Especially when propaganda is so normalized in the US and traveling is so expensive, it's not feasible for millions of people to get out of that US bubble. However, I do think it's telling that a lot of Americans continue to have this air of superiority, that they're more advanced than anywhere else because they don't subsist on rice, sugary fruits, or beans.
Actually, Indian monopoly is just like regular, except the money's in rupees. Instead of hotels, you build call centers. And when you pick a chance card, you might die of dysentery.
Usually when people from the US view other cultures, it's either through the lens of romanticization, in the case of Japanese or French cuisine, or criminalization, when it comes to smelly Indian or Chinese dishes, or fatty and unhealthy Brazilian barbecue.
You know at the Mumbai McDonald's you can't get a Big Mac? All you can get is the chicken Maharaja Mac.
And in either scenario, the US viewpoint is always default, always the norm, that everything else is judged against. It gets even weirder when superfoods like cassava or mandioca and acai make it onto the US scene because it's again the exotification of food from places that are still viewed as second best. Generally, many Americans have this view that America sucks, but it sure sucks less than the rest of the world that makes these conversations so hard to have. And I just want to say here, I love sugar as much as the next person. I love Reese's Peanut Butter Cups and those sugar cookies that are barely cooked with icing on them, but because of my own experiences in immigrating to Brazil 8 years ago, I've come to realize how effed up the food culture in the US is. Not only in that it brainwashes its citizens from staying away from white rice, an international and historical staple, but also how giant food conglomerates have taken over small businesses, hurt farmers, and have created a food market where businesses constantly have to push out new flavors and trends to keep consumers buying. In the US, food is viewed as a vehicle for maximizing profits. It's an industry built on both fear here in excess, and not just in the US domestic market, but abroad as well, in order to increase the bottom line and uphold US imperialism and soft power. According to the Grist expose on the dairy industry, dairy companies are promoting pizza, which one executive called a strong carrier for US cheese in the Middle East and Asia. In Japan, Domino's launched a New Yorker pizza topped with a full kilogram of cheese and served with a packet of seaweed and maple syrup. The New Yorker was then subsequently rolled out in Taiwan.
You want to live in Taiwan?
And of course, it's not just the US and their food and beverage corporations who put profits before anything else. Most businesses around the world, from Brazil to Japan, no matter their product, do that. That's what businesses do, focus on making money. But I think it's especially insidious when it comes to